Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be filming a very exciting video because I'm going to be taking you guys with me while I read some new popular releases. So the first new release that I'm going to be reading in this video is actually Threads That Bind. It's not super new compared to the two other books that I'm going to be reading, but it did come out May 30th, 2023. So yeah, not super new, but I really have been wanting to read this book for a while, and it's somewhat new compared to other books. So that is what I am reading currently. So come join me while I read it. Stop. Hello everybody, so it is the next day and I am about 50% through Threads That Bind. And here's the author, by the way. I didn't say it yesterday because I'm really not sure how to pronounce her name. So yesterday I realized that I didn't really tell you guys what this book is about. So I thought that now that I'm 50% through the book and I kind of have a better understanding of things, I would go ahead and tell you what this book is actually about. Our main character is Io. She is on the cover right here. That's her. So we are following our main character, Io, and she is a otherborn, as they call it. So she is descended from Greek gods. She has two older sisters. I believe her oldest sister's name is Thais. I'm really not sure how to pronounce it, but I'll put the spelling somewhere around here. I'm really not sure how to pronounce her name, but I've been calling her Thais in my head. I'm not sure if that's right. It probably isn't. But that is her oldest sister. And then we have Ava, which is the middle sibling. And then we have our main character, Io, who is the youngest. Each of the siblings are all descendants and all otherborn and all Moria-born. So they can all see threads. But each of them has kind of like a different ability that comes with being able to see these threads. Now, you may be a little confused by what I mean when I say threads, so before I go into the abilities of the siblings, I'm going to explain what the threads are and what that allows the siblings to see. So each sibling can see these threads since they are Moria-born. Only Moria-born can see the threads. Moria-born people come in sets of 3. So if your first child is Moria-born, then you're gonna have 2 other children who are also Moria-born. Threads basically are connected to everyone, whether they are otherborn or just regular humans that aren't descended from gods, who don't have any sightseeing abilities or powers or anything like that. And everyone has these threads. Now, these threads are connected to things that you love. So a significant other, a family member, pets, food, places. So Io and all of her siblings can see these people's threads. They are depicted as like silver threads coming out of people, and then they'll connect to the other thing that they love. So regarding Io and her siblings' abilities, I'm actually going to take a quote from the book that explains what exactly their abilities are, because that might be able to explain it a little better. I'll probably go in a little bit more detail about it because it can sound a little bit confusing, but I just want to make sure that I'm getting the information right. I know Io's abilities very well because we are following her, but oldest sister isn't mentioned a ton in the book, and her middle sister, she's kind of more of a side character, so we don't really see a lot of her abilities yet because I am 50% through. This is a quote from the book that explains what their abilities are. So it says, the firstborn was the spinner who could weave new threads, which is Thais. The second was the drawer. She could elongate or shorten a thread. That's Ava. So when she elongates or shortens a thread, it can intensify or weaken the corresponding feeling. And the youngest was the cutter, able to cut whatever thread she desired, even life threads. So that is Io. Another thread that everybody has is a life thread. Even if you don't love life or have an attachment to life, everybody has a life thread because you're living, you're alive. If that life thread is cut, you're no longer alive. So Io is a private investigator. She uses her powers as a cutter to be a private investigator. So she will cut threads that have people addicted to gambling or cheating or stuff like that. And the way that Io cuts threads, she has to use one of her own threads. So in cutting someone else's love or affection for a certain thing, she's also cutting one of her own threads. That is the only way that you can cut another person's thread, and only cutters can do this. So while Io is out and she's doing her private investigating, she witnesses a murder, and the murderer, their life thread is actually severed, which means they should be dead, but they're not, and they're murdering someone else. So Io is a little freaked out by this, and she's like, that shouldn't be possible. This person should be dead. There should be no way that this person is alive, and let alone being able to murder other people. So she kind of gets in contact with a gang in this book. She kind of gets into like this bargain / contract with a gang leader who hires her to figure out these murders. The people in the gang are also some prominent people that are getting murdered. In doing so, Io was paired up with the leader of the gang's second in command, I guess you could say, and his name is Adai. Once again, do not know if I'm pronouncing this right, but I will put the spelling of his name somewhere on the screen and you can decipher whether or not I'm pronouncing it right, but for now I'm gonna keep saying Adai. So her and Adai get partnered up, and she sees that she has this fated thread with him, which means this boy is the boy she is destined to be with and destined to love. He has no idea because he's not Moria born, but she knows, and she is kind of having this conflict throughout the book whether or not she should tell him. But yeah, so that's pretty much what the book is about and what's going on in the book. But I will update you guys hopefully when I'm further in, or hopefully when I finish it, because I would really love to finish it. It's really starting to get very good and I'm excited to see what happens next, so. You're kidding. You're actually kidding. This is terrible. This is terrible. What? What? That's the end? Oh my gosh. You guys. You guys, that was insane. Okay. Okay. I just need a moment. I just need a moment. So, I just finished Threads That Bind, and I don't know what to say. The second book doesn't come out until June. I don't know how I'm gonna wait that long for a second book, because the way that this ended, sometimes you can tell when a book is about to end. And when I clicked to go to the next page on my Kindle, I 100% thought that there was going to be another chapter. And when I saw the acknowledgements page come up, this was so good. Wow. I just cannot stop thinking about the way that it ended, because I don't even have words. I just don't have words. If you enjoy reading about Greek mythology, I would recommend this book, because the other born people in this book are all descended from gods of some sort, such as Io. She's descended from gods, so that's why she has her power of being able to see threads. If you like slow burn, if you like kind of like the fated mates kind of thing, there's something similar in this book. It's like they have a fated thread, so they're destined to be together. Found family. The siblings in this book are very tight-knit. When you read this book, you'll notice a lot how they say 3 bodies, 1 soul. I really love how close the siblings are. Do I love each sibling? But do I love that they stick together throughout this whole book, even though there are things that would make them not want to stick together? Yes. One of my favorite things in books is when the relationships between the sisters are so tight. It's just nice to see in books like that kind of tight relationship that holds them together throughout anything, and I just think it's so sweet. Even sweeter than a relationship, like a love relationship versus like a family relationship. I don't know. I just thought it was really sweet how throughout it all, how Io had to get through things. She would remember quotes from her siblings, even though they might have not had the best relationship at the time. She would still remember the things, the good things about her siblings that allowed her to keep going. And Io's character development through this book is absolutely amazing. I need to read the second book. I need to know what happens. I'm just like, I know that when I'm talking about this book right now, I'm gonna be all over the place, because I cannot stop thinking about how this book ended. And now I'm just like, my brain is like scrambled right now. Maybe I'll come back at the end of the video with some more thoughts on this, but wow. That was crazy. Threads That Bind. Go read it. The next book I'm going to be picking up for this video, to no one's surprise probably, is Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. This is the second book to Fourth Wing. Yeah, this is the next book I'm going to be starting on. I'm not going to start it right now because I do have to go to work in about 30 minutes. So, I will probably start this either later tonight or tomorrow. I actually get my wisdom teeth removed tomorrow, so I'm gonna have like 4 days of being able to read, which just sounds so amazing to me, because I don't usually have a lot of time to read during the week between school and work. This is the next book up, so I will see you guys when I start reading this. Wait. Oh my gosh. So, wow. You just saw me finish Iron Flame. And I mean, she knows how to make an ending, that's for sure. Miss Rebecca Yarros. How am I supposed to wait a year to find out what happens after this? That was crazy. Honestly, I found myself wanting more action in this book. Like, I felt like there was a lot of action in the first book. And I found myself wanting more action. Like, I feel like the beginning was really slow. Like, the first 40% of the book was really slow. And I just wanted more. Like, with Fourth Wing, it was super easy for me to finish that and get into it. But with this one, it was a little bit harder. I'm not saying that it wasn't good because you guys just saw my reaction. It's a really good book. I definitely prefer the first book over the second book. I think a lot of people feel that way. There was a lot that happened in those last 3 chapters. So I'm definitely excited to get into the third book. Anyways, now moving on to the third book that I'm gonna be starting. Iron Flame took me a little bit to get through, so I'm glad that I finally finished it. The Kindle version is like 870 pages, and I don't know if that's because of like the little text that they have on top of the actual book. I have the book right here. Also, with a hardback book, the pages are really big. But these little texts right here, like from the codex or like other things that give more information, I'm thinking maybe that's why it was so much larger. Like, it had so many more pages in the Kindle, probably because of that. Also the fact that the pages are really big for the hardback. The next book that I'm gonna start is Love Redesigned by Lauren Asher. This is my first Lauren Asher book. I haven't read the Dreamland Billionaire series, but I do have the fine print, which is the first book. I've been really scared to start it because I've heard a lot of mixed reviews with the Dreamland Billionaire series, but I've heard a lot of people really like this book. I haven't read just like a romance book in like a very long time because I always seem to get like a little bored with romances because it's always the same. Like, it's always a third act conflict and then miscommunication and then they make up and everything is fine. I actually don't know much about this book. An interior designer named Dahlia, and then her childhood rival Julian Lopez, and I guess they end up working together to renovate a historic house. I think I would like this because I was an interior design major. I did switch my major, but I was an interior design major, so I do enjoy that kind of thing. This is a pretty thick romance book. It's like 500 pages long. That is a big romance book, but I'm gonna go ahead and start this. Okay, it has been a hot minute since I last saw you guys, but as you saw, I did finish Love Redesigned by Lauren Asher. My thoughts on this book. So, this book honestly took me by surprise because it's really hard for me to read just books that are purely romance. Very hard for me. There always has to be a little bit of something. Usually romance has to be the subplot, Like, I can't read a book that doesn't have any romance in it unless it's a thriller. And then I can't read a book that's just purely romance. Most of the time, it gets like really boring for me. And they're all kind of the same. They always have this third act conflict. This I really, really enjoyed. It did take me a bit to get into it, but I think that was more of like a me problem. It wasn't because the book was boring or slow paced at all. It was actually very fast paced. For a 500-page romance book, saying that it's fast paced is a lot coming from me because, like I said, it's hard for me to get into the romances and I feel like not a lot of them are super fast paced. But when I picked up this book, it didn't feel like it was a 500-page book. It felt like it was flying by, like it was like 200-page book, and I could read about Julian and Dahlia for the rest of my life. Like, I still want more of them. After the epilogue, after everything, I still want more of Julian and Dahlia. I love them. I love them so very much. This absolutely just exceeded my expectations of any romance book that I have ever read. I feel like this is my favorite romance book that's just pure romance that I have read ever. I don't read a ton of just pure romance books, and I've definitely stepped away from it in the past year, so maybe I needed to start dipping my toes back into the romance pool. But yeah, I really enjoyed this book. So now for my final thoughts and ratings on the books that we read in this video. So the first book that we ended up reading in this video was Threads That Bind. Here we are, just so you guys can see the author name and everything, because like I said, I'm not going to butcher her name. Yeah, this book, oh my goodness. I am still thinking about this ending, and it's probably been about 2 weeks, and I need the second book. Like, I need it. I don't know how I'm going to wait until I believe June is the release date, June of 2024, for the second book, because this ending was crazy. I got to the last page in this book and fully expected to turn the page and see another chapter, at least one more chapter. And when I tell you, when I flipped the book and it said acknowledgements, I mean, you guys saw my reaction. I was like, what just happened? Because literally what just happened? So I ended up giving this book 4 stars. Such an amazing book, such an amazing concept. I love the main characters. I love the sister dynamic in this. Oh my gosh, I would have to say that I love the sister dynamic in this more than I love the romance, and the romance was beautiful. The romance in here, little speckles, oh my goodness, and it was amazing. I could just see this like being a movie. Like, it felt like a action movie. It felt like I was reading an action movie. It was so good. I highly recommend this book. Highly, highly recommend this book. The reason why it was a 4-star was some parts of it, there's just a lot of world building, and you're gonna have that in the first book of a fantasy series a lot. There's gonna be a ton of world building, and I think for me personally, I just got a little bit overwhelmed by it, and there was a lot of information that when it was mentioned again, I was like, wait, what is this? What are we talking about again? That might have just been for me personally, because this was my book club book of the month. So my other friend who read this book, she rated this a 5-star, and she said that it wasn't super confusing for her, so it might have just been for me. That's my rating and my final thoughts on Threads That Bind. So our next book, Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. I did explain earlier that this was a sequel to the first book, so I don't want to say anything that will be super spoiling to the first book, but I did end up giving this book a 4.25 stars, which again is a good rating. Please do not think it is not. It is a good rating. Was I a little bit disappointed by this book? yes, I was a little disappointed by this book, and I saw a lot of other people have similar feelings. It's just, this is a thick book, okay? It's only 600 pages, but I have read A Court of Silver Flames, and that book went by so much faster than the first, like, 60% of this book. It was rough. It was very, very rough to get through the first 60% of this book. I remember reading it on my Kindle and being on page 600 and looking at the percentage I was through it and seeing that I was only 60% through, and I was like, what is going on? Because I thought this was a 600-page book. And then I look at how many pages are in the Kindle version and it says there's 874 pages. When I tell you my eyes bulged because I had no idea. Honestly, I was not paying attention. Like, I thought I was almost finished with the book, and I was like, this doesn't seem like it's wrapping up. And that's when I finally looked at the page count, and I was like, I still have 300 basically more pages to go. And honestly, I was struggling at that point. I was ready for the book to be over, and I was like, how is this gonna end? But Queen Rebecca Yarros, oh my gosh, if she knows how to do anything, it is to create an ending. With what happens at the end of this book, at the last 20%, I would say, the last 20% to 5 chapters of this book, would I say it makes up for the beginning? That's why it's not a 5-star. But the last 5 chapters of this book was an emotional roller coaster, and I wish I would have mentally prepared myself for what was going to happen at the end of this book. So yes, 4.25 stars to Iron Flame here. Great, wonderful, amazing moments in this book, but it does not make up for how difficult it was to get through it, and that's why my rating was a little bit lower for this than it was for Fourth Wing. Still a great book, still a great series. We'll still be picking up book 3. So, that's Iron Flame. Now, for our final book, Love Redesigned. You guys just kind of heard my thoughts on that one, so I don't really know if there's much else for me to say besides my rating. And my rating for Love Redesigned by Lauren Asher is a 4.5 stars. Now, if you told me when I started this video the purely romance book would be the one that I rated the highest, I would have laughed in your face. Like I said, I'm not a pure romance girly. Maybe I will be now after this. But yeah, like I said, really enjoyed this book. Really, really, really love the family dynamic and the characters, and I cannot wait for the second book because these are going to be, I believe, like the Dreamland Billionaire series. I think that's what it's called, with fine print and stuff like that, where I think they're interconnected standalones, but they have characters from each of the books. So this book focuses on Dahlia and Julian, and I believe the next book is going to be Julian's cousin, which I'm super excited about. This book, also, I would look up the trigger warnings because there are some sensitive topics in this book. Our main character, Dahlia, she is going through kind of a depressive episode in her life at the beginning of this book, so I would just look up the trigger warnings for that. I will show you guys right here if you're interested in reading the book but want to check your trigger warnings. That is the link in the QR code if you want to look it up before you start reading this book, if that's something that may be a triggering topic for you. So those are the popular, I guess, new book releases that I read in this video. I know that Threads That Bind isn't super recent, it was a 2023 release, but I just kind of wanted to include it in this video because it is still a little bit new. I really love the synopsis of that book, and I just kind of wanted an excuse to put a third book in this video. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and If there are any other new releases that you guys are reading and would like me to read and or think are very interesting, let me know down in the comments below. If you like this video, please subscribe and give it a thumbs up. Again, any suggestions are welcome in the comments down below from any ideas or anything that you would like to see from me. And I will see you guys again soon. Bye!